Welcome to today's Seidokan Saturday. So I recently purchased a few pair of Sai from Shureido in Okinawa. And when I posted, and they're beautiful, I love them. When I posted, Donnie Hayhurst, Kohler, I think Mike Wysocki may have said the same thing. Several said, hey, that's a good thing to do your Seidokan Saturday because Shureido in Okinawa has changed fabricators from the ones who used to make their Sai for many, many years, and they have a new group now. So my Sai from Okinawa arrived, and they are different. So I have 4 pair of Sai that I personally own currently, but I want to first start with price point. So my original Sai, when I first started in the martial arts, I got them from your big clearinghouse martial arts supply companies in the United States, Century Martial Arts, Tiger Claw, but most notably Asian World of Martial Arts, who typically have very good products amidst some of the garbage that they sell for the mass produced, but they have some good stuff, and I have some really solid bow staffs bows that I've gotten. I shouldn't say bow staff, that's redundant. It's like Mount Fujiyama, that's Mount Fuji Mountain. Makes no sense. Anyway, so some of the weapons that I've gotten from them and other supplies, nice gis, dogis, and other stuff. But the Sai in particular were just the cheap chrome, and the chrome, if you did any impact, flaked off after a while. The balance wasn't always great. They were mass produced, blah, blah, blah. So about 35 years ago, I guess now, I got my first set of Sai from Shureido in Okinawa, from their original fabricator. And I've had these for a long time, and they've served me very well, very solid, very comfortable in my hand, fit well, maneuver well, etc. So but they're a little banged up, and so it was time for me to get some new ones. I was not aware that Shureido had a new fabricator. Therefore, when Donnie and Matt and Mike asked to do a review, I thought, oh, okay. Didn't realize they were new fabricators, but as I got my Sai finally, obviously different fabricators. So the first thing I want to talk about between the various Sai is price point, because that matters. The cheapos that I got from Asian World, Century, Tiger Claw, other companies, the cheapos were cheap. They were very inexpensive, less than $100, usually $70 to $90 for a pair. And if you're just going to flip them around or go to a tournament and you're not going to do any actual training with them other than maneuvering and possibly kata, they're okay. But even then, you're teaching your hands wrong balance. But they're very inexpensive. The Shureido Sai, obviously, are going to cost a little more. And the thing you have to factor in if you're ordering from Okinawa is the shipping and the duty costs, the duty fees, the import duties that they charge. So that almost doubles the price of the Sai. That's not a horrible thing if, depending on how you do it, you could actually even order, if you're planning a trip to Okinawa, pick them up there, ship them home in your luggage and save yourself that expense, but now you're paying to go to Okinawa, so 6 half dozen. But the Shureido Sai basically are not that expensive. They were not that much more than the Sai that I got from Asian World and the other US supply companies, and much higher quality, good solid steel, and depending on the exchange rate, the Shureido Sai really, they're only about $110 to $120 depending on the Sai and which style you get, and I'll show you that in just a minute. But these originally were only about $100 plus the shipping and duties, which brought it up to about $200. But $200 for a pair of Sai of good quality is not terrible, and I'll tell you why. The $200, when I went to get my Shureido Sai recently, the first thing I did before purchasing those was I went on a couple of different karate message boards and asked where people got their Sai and who made them. And there were 2 or 3 fabricators that most people recommended, and they gave me the price point, which was usually around $230 to $300, $250 to $300, depending on after shipping and so forth. And again, for a handmade quality pair of Sai, $300 is not that much. My top of the line, and he's retired now and no longer makes them, are my Okinawan Sai, manufactured by Carbone Sensei, and the balance, feel, weight, just magnificent in these, but over 650 bucks, between $600 and $650. So more than twice what some of the other higher quality, better quality Sai are, but they are definitely twice as good, and I'll get to that in a minute. So price point is where I'm focused now. But for $600, and he no longer makes these, so out of business. Nobody does what Carbone Sensei did anymore. He was the last maker of those. So my original Sai from Shureido, a step up from the Asian world, at about 100 bucks, plus double that for shipping and duties. The new manufactured Sai, beautiful, love them. The new fabricator from Shureido. I'll take a close-up still photo to add on to this after. The weight and feel, beautiful. Still about the same price, about 110 bucks for this brand, and they're not the black painted coated. They have sort of a bronzed finish on top of the steel. And so again, very high quality steel for about 110 bucks, depending on the size and length you get, plus the shipping and duties, which brings it to about 175 to 200, again, depending on size and exchange rate at the time. So price point, still very reasonable, still with the new manufacturer, still the same high quality of the old guys, but the major difference, well, I'll get into the differences about it in a minute. And then Shureido also makes their stainless steel, which are twice as much as their bronzed basic steel. So these start at about $200 US, depending again on the yen exchange rate on Okinawa. So they're almost twice as much as the standard Sai. They're prettier, they're shiny, still very solid. So at a price point, still, it'll run you about $300 by the time they get shipped to you, which falls into that general range of some of the other fabricators, manufacturers that would make the higher quality. So ranging from about $100 on Okinawa to $200 when you add the shipping and duties, to $200 on Okinawa plus, or direct from Shureido, plus shipping and duties, bringing it almost $300, depending on timing and so forth, up to $600 for the custom-made Sai from Carbone Sensei. So that's quite the range, from 70, 80, 90 bucks at the cheapo places to just over $100 at the base price point in Okinawa at shipping costs, to up to 600 or more for the Okinawan Sai that Carbone Sensei made. So the price can be a big determinant. Next thing, the quality of the materials. The quality between my old Shureido and my new Shureido is comparable, identical. The quality, I cannot complain. The style difference that you'll see is in the fork prong being longer on the older version than on the new version, which is obviously a little bit shorter. Other than that, they're both octagonal. They both fit the size beautifully. Both Sai fit in size beautifully. One of the things that I've run into on some of the cheaper ones is the space for my hand. My hand is a little bit thick in a couple of places, and so depending on your manipulations, that can be an issue. But the Sai from Shureido are ample for even a big, thick, 6-foot-tall fat American's hand. Just like, and again, the fit here in the prongs is virtually identical. It's just the length of the fork that's different and a little bit more pointy on my old one and shorter and not as pointy on the new. That's really the only difference in terms of the look. In terms of the feel, weight is identical. virtually identical. I mean, prong's shorter, so there's that much weight difference, and you can kind of feel it between your hands when you switch. But the weight is beautiful. They very well made. One of the other things that is of a concern with the cheapos is you get at the weld point here on the cheapos, there's this huge lump. Well, if you're putting your thumb behind the lump when you're doing your striking, okay, not a big deal, but you're actually supposed to be able to put it right on that intersection point, and these are nice and flat-ish at the weld point, and yet still very solidly welded together. So very high quality manufacturing, in my personal, humble, inexperienced opinion. Very comparable in that regard to the other manufacturer that Shureido used to use. Their new guy does a fantastic job. Identical in terms of its manufacture is the stainless steel. It's identical in almost every way, just a little bit higher quality material plus the chrome finish. I'm not exactly sure why that doubles the price, but the weight and feel, the prong, the center prong is a little bit thicker on the stainless steel, but not noticeably so. And so again, the weight is very comparable. If I were to take two mismatched ones in my hand, working my kata and doing my techniques, it's not a noticeable, well, again, depending on your sensitivity. Most people won't notice the difference. I can feel a slight heavierness in the stainless steel one. So that's slightly different, but virtually identical, just a different material and therefore twice as much. That covers the cost point. Back again to the structure and manufacturing. The new manufacturer makes the prongs a little bit shorter, and you can actually see on here that if the lighting will allow me, that they're kind of shaved off. The ends of these look a lot like where I shaved the length off of my old original Sai. So they've maybe intentionally shortened that. That could be a little longer and pointier, but it's consistent with the tip point, and again, doesn't interfere at all with the handling and feels very comfortable in my hand, so not a big deal that way. Very nice weight, comparable in every way to their previous manufacturer. So in summary, the only real difference I see between their previous fabricator at Shureido and the current ones are that the prongs are slightly shorter and the finish is more bronzing instead of black automotive painted as the older Sai were. I'm not even going to compare them to the Seidokan Sai that Carbone made, because at 650 bucks, a whole different thing. Next thing to look at, however, is the balance point on each of the Sai. So typically, you're going to have the balance right between the two prongs, so that, well, if I turn it this way, that would be about the balance point. So pretty much center between the two prongs. If you come up on the side prongs and then go straight through the center there, that's pretty much where the balance point typically is going to be, if I can get my finger to quit shaking. So there's your balance point on these, between the two prongs. Same thing essentially here. Let's see where this one is, if I can get it to sit on my finger properly. Probably a centimeter or two more forward on the stainless, so more toward the bend in the prong on the stainless. Again, that's consistent with the extra thickness that is in the stainless as opposed to the bronze ones. In the old Shureido Sai, it was essentially the same thing, pretty much center prong balance. And that's pretty consistent with how most Sais should be. That again is one of the big differences between the well fabricated with a good solid handle, tong, and pommel, the well fabricated and the cheapo mass-produced American company, Century Asian World, and so forth. One of the things that I noticed in my Seidokan Sai is that the balance point is way more forward, almost at the end of the prongs, as opposed to here, it's forward more, as opposed to more in the center, which is where the Shureido ones are. This adds a change in the weight and balance point of the more expensive custom made. Again, I didn't buy the custom made ones that were recommended to me from the karate message boards, so I can't compare those. Maybe at some point down the line I'll have a set made and compare. The difference of having the weight, the center of gravity further forward, is there's less weight here to manage, which puts more of the control in my hand as opposed to the weight being further out and away from my hand, makes them very manageable. So that's one of the things that, in terms of feel and manipulation with the Okinawan Sai, you're going to definitely notice is that tiny distance between here and here of balance point. By moving the balance point forward, that actually gives your hand more control at this end, less weight pulling you around at this end. With the balance point in the standard position, there's obviously going to be more weight over here, which you will feel as you're doing your striking and manipulations. Okay, so Shureido Sai. Now, the last thing I want to mention is the quality of the materials themselves, and one of the many ways to do that is to actually hit something. Listen. So the stainless steel, little bit of a ring. The forged steel, almost like a tuning fork on a piano. So that is one of the, if I'm explaining the price point difference between the Shureido $100 and $200, or after shipping $200 and $300, if I'm explaining the difference, that is going to be one of the biggest ones, is the impact absorption. So when I hit, I don't feel that back into my hand. That was one of the great innovations when I was a kid in tennis rackets, from the old wood ones where you had to use the press to keep them flat, to when the head rackets came out with the fiberglass, and it was just an amazing advancement in technology, because now when you hit the ball, of course the strings are going to impact that a lot, but the fiberglass absorbed that vibration so it didn't transfer into you, and people who used to get what was called tennis elbow were not getting tennis elbow nearly as much anymore because of the quality of the materials. So the difference between, again, a short ring for a little bit, ding, and sort of a clang, more of a bell clang, as opposed to a tuning fork. I hope you can hear that with my bad camera microphone. And the same with the old fabricators in quality. More of a tuning fork ring, a bit of a different pitch. Then we get to the Okinawan Sai. Almost nothing, just a short clang. And so that vibration is being completely absorbed into the materials and not transferred into your body. So if you're doing weapon-on-weapon training, that becomes a real important issue in your Sai choice. The super cheapo, chrome-plated weapon-on-weapon training, gonna chip the crap out of them. Bad balance point, not always very well wrapped in the handles. The Shureido steel, the basic iron, I should call it, the basic iron Sai, a definite tuning fork ringing sound, but good quality iron, so not a problem. The stainless steel, more of a clang, a shorter vibration time, and so the stainless steel absorbs better. And then of course the super high quality Okinawan, if you can get them, if somebody's ever selling their pair when they retire or quit using them, pick those up, definitely worth it. So balance point, little is same on the old and new Shureido, very similar. Prongs are different. Weight, very comparable. Materials, still super high quality. Grip, I have these, on all of them, I've always chosen the string wrapped, because should it ever need to be replaced, it's easier and cheaper than the leather wrapped or cloth wrapped versions. So I've always chosen the string wrap. And again, on both of these, they are virtually identical. The pommel's just a little bit longer on the new one than on the old, but the string wrap and everything, obviously the old is a little more worn, but they held up very nicely. High quality thread string, so that's nice. The prong length is the only significant difference that I would mention between the two comparably priced Shureido basic iron Sai. The stainless steel, obviously a little bit better. Balance same, good string wrap. shorter prong length, different bronze color instead of black painted material. I believe that covers all the differences, but none of them are so far off my old Shureido, my new iron Shureido, and my new stainless steel Shureido are all within close enough parameters that if I had a mismatched pair in my hand, the balance points are the same, the manipulations feel the same, and the weight, unless you're super highly trained, is not that much different. Kind of like the old story, or not old, Tiger Woods was testing golf clubs at the Nike factory, and they gave him a bunch of drivers to hit. And after he went in, he said, yeah, I like the lighter one. And they said, they're all exactly the same weight. And he said, no, this one's lighter. And they weighed it. It was like a half an ounce or something. Tiger Woods could feel it. Somebody who's very skilled in baseball is going to feel the minute weight. Somebody very skilled in weapons, even more than I am, will probably feel it a little bit more, and I can notice it, but it's not enough to change the manipulation points. Hopefully that wasn't too rambly. For those who are interested, Shureido Sai, with the shipping and duties, comparable to what's being handmade until I buy one of those from one of the fabricators that the karate boards mentioned. To my taste, the Shureido Sai are as good as you're ever going to need. Solid. The stainless steel, obviously, a little bit more absorptive for weapon on weapon. And there you go. If you have any other questions or comments, your likes, dislikes, please like, share, subscribe. And until next week, most importantly, and as always, let's keep practicing.